How's it going, everybody? I hope you're doing well, and I hope that you're dodging this flu that seems to be going around because it sucks. In my last video, I talked a little bit about women's economic empowerment and women's hypergamy, and I talked about the societal effects of these two things converging, with one of the primary effects being an unprecedented number of young men being hedged out of the dating and marriage market. Well, this video is going to be sort of a flip side of that. In this video, I'm going to be offering up my personal opinion on what I like to refer to as inverted marriages. A quick word of warning, some of the statements that I'll make in this video may be controversial to some. I want to reiterate, these are my personal opinions, and if you don't like what I have to say in this video, you are free to ignore it entirely. Now, what would I personally classify as an inverted marriage? Well, the obvious thing is a marriage where the wife makes the majority or the entirety of the major decisions for the couple or household. But I'd also classify an inverted marriage as a marriage where the wife is the primary breadwinner, where the wife has a greater level of experience in male domains than the husband, where she has a higher level of education and a greater degree of worldly influence. All of these things constitute an inversion in the traditional marriage dynamic. I would personally take things a step further and argue that men who are in such marriages are not the heads of their households, not even legally, and that they cannot be the heads of their households by the very nature of the dynamic of the marriage that they're in. And there's bound to be people who disagree with that. Likewise, there's plenty of men who would argue that even though their marriage falls into my definition of an inverted marriage, that they still very much lead their homes. But that tends to be anything but the truth, at least in my personal experience. In all actuality, such men tend to serve as the part-time logical consultant of their wife. They tend to serve as the full-time family guard dog, but that's where their jurisdiction tends to end. And in the meantime, the wives make every major decision under the roof and tend to exceed them in pretty much every other area of life. As American women continue to be artificially empowered in every sector of society, and as their status continues to increase as a result of this boosting, more and more men are finding themselves in situations that would fit my definition of an inverted marriage, and among young couples especially, it's becoming extremely common for the woman to be the primary breadwinner. I personally believe that such arrangements are bad for men. I believe that they're bad for a man's confidence, and I believe that they're bad for a man's mental and spiritual well-being and development. And I believe that such arrangements deprive men of an opportunity to develop themselves as leaders in their homes, while also depriving them of the fulfillment of being looked up to by their wives. Just as women generally prefer to look up to the man that they're in a relationship with, I believe that men have a biological yearning to be looked up to in a relationship, and that they have a yearning to be admired for exceeding women in the domains that I've already listed in this video. Funny enough, a growing number of inverted couples seem to have grown pretty self-conscious of this imbalance over the past couple of years. And one thing I've noticed is that wives in these marriages seem to be looking for ways to compensate for this, typically by showering their husbands with gifts, or going out of their way to praise their husbands for being the protector, or by heavily encouraging their husbands to engage in masculine hobbies and activities as a means of providing these men with a healthy outlet to express their masculinity, since they're not allowed to be the men of the house. Other wives in inverted marriages seem to fully embrace their identity as the head of the household and seem to be leaning into it. Such wives never seem to miss an opportunity to delegate virtually every aspect of their husband's life. In fact, I personally know a married couple where the wife even dictates how her husband is to brush his teeth, namely with baking soda, first thing in the morning and immediately after supper. Such women also never seem to miss an opportunity to humiliate their husbands. I was on Facebook recently and I stumbled upon a picture posted by a breadwinning wife that she had taken of her husband. According to her, her husband had came in from work and immediately began washing dishes, and when he had his back turned at the sink, she snapped a photo of him and shared it to a group full of women praising her husband for washing the dishes and assuring all the women that good men were still out there. Now, let me be perfectly clear. I don't look down upon any men who are in such marriages. I understand what's happening in the world. Believe me, I get it. But I do find the arrangement to be humiliating, and I find it particularly depressing to see my close personal friends in such marriages because I always wanted more for them than that. There was a time in my life, maybe 10 or 15 years ago, where I would encounter a married couple out in the world, and it would inspire me to want to seek marriage for myself. And don't get me wrong, there still are a few marriages out there that inspire me in such a way, but more often I encounter inverted couples, and quite frankly, they depress me to be around. I very often lament where we seem to be headed as a people, and I regard the new order of marriage to be against the design that God had originally intended. I believe that the new order of marriage is bad for men, I believe it's bad for women, I believe it's bad for children, and I believe that it ultimately leaves both men and women unfulfilled. I suppose this summarizes my thoughts on inverted marriages. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Till next time, God bless you. See you in the next video.